Right, okay, we should be also then. Yep, recording. So, um, thank you for coming along tonight. I have I've got one of the most wonderful friends that I spend time with every month, and that is Gerald Richards. So thank you for coming along, Gerald.
Right back at you. Right back at you. I love
Um,
talking.
and we're going to, we were chatting earlier. Thea was kind of in the green room with us backstage, just listening to us, just chatting away here. Uh, we were saying we've got a kind of theme as to what we want to go and explore, but it's not going to be presentation like, but I want to have a bit of a chat with Gerald. And by all means, if you've got questions or anything that you want to comment on, just you can, jump in as well. But Gerald and I met originally whilst actually through the Literature Alliance for Scotland. That was where we first kind of connected. You and your last kind of like paid employment job, So tell us a little bit about what you were doing then and what you're doing now, just
What I'm
before we
doing
kind of
now.
get into stuff.
So I moved to hi everybody. So I moved to Scotland about 8 years ago to help start a charity called the Superpower Agency, which is an organization that does creative writing workshops for young people in schools. It's based on an organization I ran in the States for about 7 years called 826 National, which was a network of creative writing and after school tutoring centers, which was in about 8 other cities across the US. And I was asked to come here to help them start it here. So I was doing that for about 5 years, helping them sort of set everything up, build it. I always say I'm not the person that found something. I'm the person you hire to do it next, to like take it over and run it. So that's always been my thing. So I was doing that for about 5 years. I took over from the founder who didn't really understand what the work was, and I took over and I did that. And we worked with about 5,000 kids over the time that I was here. Published about 30 books of young people's writing.
Yeah.
That's all over and was sold in bookstores and everything. It was really great. But I'd come on board saying, you know what, I was only going to do this for like 3 to 5 years. And then I thought someone from Scotland, hopefully someone who'd been through the Scottish school system,
Yeah.
should take it over and run it and work with the young people because I thought that would be that I love that idea of someone who's been through it being the inspiration for other young people
Mhm.
from here to to do it. So I left and I didn't expect the pandemic was going to happen. That was the
Yeah.
first one,
Mhm.
right? We all got a pandemic. And so for about 2 or 3 years, all the schools were shut down. So I was sitting in my house, like watching, baking, kimchiing. I was doing all the things you're supposed to do. And a friend of mine who ran a similar organization in London, his name's Ben Payne, ran an organization in London called the Ministry of Stories, which he founded, which does the same work and worked with schools and young people in creative writing. Anyway, he wanted to leave that. And I knew I was leaving the super agency at some point. And we started talking about starting like, what if we started a consultancy that helped people? One of us was focused around storytelling. How do we help organizations and people tell a better story about the work that they do?
Mhm.
But also, how could we support nonprofits and other nonprofit leaders to not make the mistakes and all the hardships and all the pain that we had gone through? Because when you do it right, there's no manual when you start something. If you found something, you're running a nonprofit. I think there are lots of schools and programs and things doing it. But when we started, it was like you would like trial by fire, right? How do I fundraise?
Yeah.
How do I employ people? How do I do all these things? So we started this consultancy. It's the easiest name you'll ever remember. It's called B&G Partners. Ben and Jill Partners. We tried to come up with a different name, and every name we came up with, people were like, no. The name we had at one point was Brilliance, which we thought was really great until someone said, that's a lot to live up to.
And you
So
would have. You would
we
have.
could have, we
Oh.
would have, we would have. But right now, so we work with nonprofits, nonprofit leaders. We do a multitude of things. A lot of the work we do is around facilitation. We teach workshops on succession planning, fundraising, storytelling, how to use your evaluation, tell your story. So we do a lot of that. We go in and we wound up working with a lot of heritage organizations on audience engagement and community engagement.
Mm.
So it sort of expanded. So at one point, I was doing two jobs. I was still running Superpower Agency, and I was sort of part-time doing um, B&G. And then in about summer of 2023, I was like, I'm out. I did my 5 years. I told you what I was going to do. And so now this is the first time I've actually ever been self-employed.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm trying to not to be nerve-wracked by it. My business partner is much more used to it than me.
Yeah.
So he's definitely, as half the time, has to tell me when I'm sitting in the house going, is it okay that we don't have much to do today? He's like, it's okay. It's all right. So we're doing that. So that's been great. We've worked with about 7,000 charities over the course of when we started back in 2016.
Yeah.
I just did a workshop earlier today. We did on building corporate partnerships. So we do that. So that's where I am now.
Lots, lots of
I,
interesting things.
and then I do some other side hustles. We'll talk a bit
We're going to
about.
talk about
Sort of
side hustles in a wee while.
fallen
Yeah.
into some other side hustles, which I would never have expected to fall into at this point in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
we're going to
we'll
get
get
into
into
some
that.
of that in a little bit. But I think one thing, and I suppose here's something for everybody to think about, because I first saw you speak at the one of the Alliance meetings, right? You were talking about Superpower Agency, and
Yes.
I was sitting in the audience and I was just going, I need to know this man, because you were because you were just full of life and enthusiasm, and it was like, and I just loved how you were speaking and talking about what you were doing. And then obviously at that point we were running our publishing stuff, and then I mean, I reached out to you actually to talk about Callum's legacy,
That's right.
because at the point we were developing the stuff for Callum's legacy, and I was kind of thinking, did I go down a charity route or not? And it was like, who could I have a chat with? And I thought, I know, I'm going to have a wee chat with Gerald. and and I think within 10 minutes we kind of went, no, don't do
I know,
it.
I was just talking about you last week to someone that I had told you that advice. Like, should I start a charity? I was like, don't do it. If you want to have a board who
Yeah.
tells you what to do, that's great. But if you
Yeah.
don't and you want
Yeah.
some sort of,
Yeah.
you know,
So, which was good advice. Yeah. But what happened, I think that, then we helped you out with a couple of the books and things. But what what I really found was that we just had a really nice connection. And excuse me, what I then said to him, I mean, he didn't get away from me, because then I said, would you like just to kind of like catch up once a month where we just to have a chat? And I don't know where it's going, and I don't know what we'll be talking about, but what do you think? And that must be a couple of years
that's a
now.
couple years ago. A couple years ago. Yeah.
And there's very rarely been more than a month between us having a call.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we talk about I mean, I don't know, the most amazing conversation.
They're very free flowing. They go in lots of different directions. A lot of things. But I
Yeah,
think I think we're both, I think when we met, we were sort of somewhat in similar places.
yeah,
Because I think you were trying to figure out, do I do this with Callum's Legacy?
yeah, yeah.
What do I do next? I was sort of thinking, what do I do next? But I didn't really know. I mean, I knew the consultancy was coming up, but it was this sort of thing of like, do I do the consultancy and get another job, or do I just throw myself into the deep end and become a self-employed person?
Yeah,
And so we were in that space of being able to talk about those things
yeah, yeah.
together, which was really helpful to me because you rarely have a lot of people who you can talk to about everything.
Yeah, yeah,
We I mean and then we talk about spirituality, we talk about work, we talk about life, every
yeah,
place.
yeah. Uh, and I think what's interesting for me is that often we start off with just like how you doing, what's been happening and what's going on, and then
Mm.
we go off on all sorts of tangents, but somehow or other we come full circle with things, and And it's like, oh, that makes sense now why we were then talking about
Why we
this.
went there, right? Why we started here.
Yep.
It comes back to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm lucky that, that I've got a few people in my life, people who are on this call, that I can reach out and do that with. But I think it's the thing that not there's so many people might have been in a situation where they might have been like me and seen somebody that they really admired and think, I would like to get to know that person more. And it would be really good just to have some conversations and not having an agenda of, well, this is what I'm going to get out of this. It wasn't like we were engaging in a formal coaching arrangement or something like that. It was just like, and I wonder how many other people would actually reach out and suggest that to somebody.
Yeah. I don't think many would. I mean, I think when you said you might could we talk once a month, I think my first thought was like, really? And then I was like, actually, that would be really nice because I didn't have any, but right? I was in the middle of sort of this running this organization,
Yeah,
which, when you run an organization, is a very lonely experience,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's doing that. And then I don't know, right? At the time, I didn't know many people here. So I was like, oh, this is a good experience. But like I said, I was actually very flat. I was like, oh, okay. And I wondered, I was like, well, what we talk about? And I don't think we've ever run out of things to talk about, right? So it's the interesting part about it of like taking the chance of being like, hi,
Yeah,
um, let's go in. Where am I now? I live in Edinburgh now.
yeah.
Um, I'm originally from New York City. And I have moved, and as people say, I have no trace of an accent from New York City. That's because I've lived like in like probably six different cities in the US. Before I moved to Edinburgh, I was living in San Francisco off and on for about 20 years. And so moved around. But when we were talking about this, we had for San Jose.
Yeah.
Oh, San Jose to Glasgow, San Jose to Glasgow. That actually, do you think that's actually almost a parallel? I think for San Francisco to Edinburgh and to San Jose to Glasgow, I feel like that's a parallel. That's a parallel. That's a parallel.
Yeah, yeah. You finished your dinner now, Thea. She's kind of
That's a parallel.
yeah. So that thing, and that's, I suppose, one of the themes for tonight was about this step into the unknown and kind of saying yes to things and what even when you're in, you can either say yes or no to something, and something even as, like, me saying, do you fancy having a chat once a month? You
Yeah.
could have went, "Oof, who's this weird woman? I don't know what I'm getting myself into."
I've got something I do once a month.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't know. I'm washing my hair. So, but also then just taking the leap and moving countries, because Thea and yourself both moved countries, came to Scotland. So did Ginger. Ginger's from Czech. So
Mhm.
and she came across here as well. Sue travelled as well, not quite so far. Uh, so that's the Sue's from England originally, came up to Scotland.
Yeah.
What what is it that allowed you to say yes to that big leap? Because those are like big leaps of faith, really, to kind of just not just move. For me, I've moved 20 miles from where I stayed, but to move country and kind of try something different. What is it you think that gives you that sense of adventure, maybe? Or
That's a good question. Because when I mean, right, I moved here. I had well, Ben I knew already
yeah.
before I moved here. And I had a really good friend of mine who lives in France who I've known for like 30 years or so. But I didn't know anyone else here. I literally, right, I came over to talk to them about starting the organization, which was really just in a support role. We did some training, we did all that stuff. And then I, at the time, was leaving my job. So I did the thing you're not supposed to do, right? And probably our parents all told us, leave a job without having a job. So when I was running 8 to 6, I finally at one point I'd been doing for 7 years, almost 8 years. And I sat down and it was one day I was like, I think this is it. Like I think I've done all I can do.
Hmm.
I could have stayed for like 10, 15 years. I could probably still be there,
Yeah.
right? The organization was running well. We were doing a lot of stuff. It was a lot of innovative stuff. But I just knew I was like, this is it. But I then resigned, not right away, right? I gave him about a year's notice, but I didn't have a job. I just was like, I'm out, right? No idea what I was gonna do. I think at the time I was like 48, and I was convinced I was having a full-blown midlife crisis. That was not me buying a Ferrari or a car, but was me just being like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do with my life. And I loved it because a friend of mine said, "You're not having a crisis, you're having a midlife inspiration."
Ooh, I like that.
And I loved that because it was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is great. But I did throw all the cards up in the air and was like, I'll just figure it all out as it happens. And then the opportunity with the super agency came up, and I said yes. And I think I said yes without actually realizing what I was actually doing. I said yes because I always wanted to live overseas. I'd always wanted to live overseas. I did a lot. I travel a lot, and I love traveling. And the opportunity came up, and I just said yes. And I remember I said yes. I came back home. I sat in my living room in San Francisco and was like, what have I just done? And a friend of mine was like, what, how was it? And I said, I just took a job in in Scotland. And they're like, do you know anybody in Scotland? It's like, really? Right. But I did it. I think a bit was about adventure. A bit about was about the experience of it.
Hmm.
A bit of it was about I thought if I didn't do it then, it was never going to happen. Right? It was just going to get harder and harder to do the older I got because I was either going to be more settled. I didn't have a family. I don't have kids. I'm not married. And it was like a perfect time to be like, you know what? If you're going to do it now.
Hmm.
Take the leap. If you don't like it, you'll move back to the States.
Yeah.
And no harm, no foul. You'll do the 3 or 5 years at Super Agency and then you'll go back. And so I literally got rid of everything I owned and then picked up and hopped on the plane and moved here. I remember, and I moved here the week before Christmas, which was the strangest time to move here because it was cold and it was dark and it was like, and there was no one around. But it was great. It was great. And I don't regret it at all. It was that, but it was that thing of like, I've always been a big believer in taking advantage of experiences,
Yeah.
be able to see what, if you don't do it, you always regret not doing it. So it's better to do it and then experience it and see what happens. And then what do I learn from, and then looking at the experience and going, what am I learning from this?
Hmm.
What did I learn from it? So I did it, and I remember someone told me, the first time I ever felt really old was someone said, wow, at your age, you moved across, you moved to another continent. I'm like, you what exactly? I was like, how dare you? My age? What are you talking about? What's going on? So, but it was good, and it was that sort of thing. Like it was. I think at the beginning of that sort of peace period of my life, I think I'm still in, where I'm like, I just said yes. I was like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. It'll fall. It'll wind up. The worst that could happen is I get here and I don't like it and I go away. But that has not happened. I
Yeah.
came and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm here.
Much of my same philosophy around things. It's like just try it and just
Just try
go for
it.
it. And yeah, and it's because that's the thing. I think so many people regret, you hear all these like, these things where they've interviewed people that are dying and what were their regrets, the regrets that are not the things that they've done, but the things that they didn't do and the time that they didn't spend with people and the things that that they wish that they had been brave enough to try that they weren't able to, and I'm just going,
Yeah.
well, do you know what? It's just like, yeah, just give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, then it's like, that whole NLP thing, there's no such thing as failure, it's only feedback,
Yeah.
And we all need we need a lot of feedback.
We need a lot of
A
feedback,
lot
right? But it was that thing. I didn't want to be, somewhere sitting going like, wow, I could have actually lived overseas and I didn't take
yeah,
advantage of it.
yeah,
And as a nonprofit person, you don't get those opportunities. They'll come along
yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
So especially I was working in youth development. I've always worked in not always, I've always worked in like youth development education, and those
yeah,
aren't the jobs that are easily transferable over to
yeah,
another country. So
yeah,
the fact that I found something that was actually going to allow me to use the skills I had to move
yeah.
was like, you better, if you don't do this and you regret it, you only have yourself to blame.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, thank you for being brave and coming here because we wouldn't have met and we wouldn't have, so. um, And then, but you've decided to stay, and now you're fully blown,
A
like you're,
full-blown citizen. I went all in. I went all
yeah.
in. I got my citizenship. It was actually a year ago this month.
Wow.
I became a citizen. And it was funny because my sister was here and she was more excited about it than I was, which I thought was hilarious. Because she's like, this is great. This is wonderful. And you as Americans, we're like, we don't see citizenship ceremonies, right? You live in the country, you never see a citizenship ceremony. So I was like, being part of it was great. But it was one of those, I think, that she also, my sister worked in the same job for about 30 years, which we've have very different paths of existence. And I think now she's sort of exploring what she wants to do next.
You're
And
encouraging her to be a little braver now,
a
aren't it?
little, yeah. And we've been talking about that now about she's like, well, what do I do next? Well, she really wants to come and live in my spare bedroom, but I'm like, no, 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 no. We're
But Thea's not done it yet. Thea, how long have you been in Scotland? Because you've been here quite a while too, though, haven't you? So
33 and a half years.
wow. So you're still I was going to keep indefinite leave to remain and do it. And then my former country went and elected a crazy person.
Well, there is that.
Yeah, and I
But
was just like,
but it's
let
like,
me.
isn't it like 2,000 pounds to get a
It's
citizenship?
expensive. It was
Yeah,
expensive.
I don't have that spare cash. So I've
Yeah,
just never, but then people are like, you better do it because of all the hoopla that's happening with the UK now and
yeah,
ILR and things like that. You should get it. And it's like, it's making me paranoid, but I don't have 2 grand spare.
yeah. That was. I was like, I happened to have it. We had a good like, well, because I was doing two jobs, I had extra funds,
yeah,
so it wound up being. And I was just like, do it now
yeah,
before you don't have it, and I just did it. But it was that sort of safety net
yeah.
to have. I just went back to the States this summer. It's very funny because when you go back to the US, they're very against you using any other passport except your US passport. And pulled out my British passport and they're like, no, not that one. I put it back in my bag. I'm like, sorry, I'll use it when I go back home. I hope not.
It's like, I'll come in as a US citizen. I'll
It's
leave as
yes,
a US.
and I would
I'll
leave as a
arrive
British
back here
citizen.
as a yeah. So yeah, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about these other side projects that have come up because this is hilarious. Yeah. I think though it's just that other thing about when opportunities present themselves and like do you go, oh, I couldn't possibly, or I'm all in, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of started with applying to first dates to be on the show, right? So you were looking for some romance
Looking
and
for some
thought
romance. And just
first dates looks like a good option.
I broke up with my partner a couple months ago. A couple months before. And so I applied because I'd always want, but even before I met him, I was like, "Oh, first dates. I love the show. I think it's very wholesome. It's very cute. It's very heartwarming." And also, I'm like, if those people can do it, I could probably find a date. So I was like, "That's great." So I applied, went through the whole process, did the whole thing. They were like, "We love you. We totally want you on the show as a dater. Put these weekends aside in March." And we will let you know when we find you a date and it'll be great. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is great. I was very excited. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call from one of the producers. And he said, what would you think about being one of the waiters on the show? And one of the servers. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, the people who are on the show, if you've ever seen the show, the servers are there and they help. They talk to the daters, they talk to each other, but they're there to help the daters. And if they run into any sort of asking them questions about the dates and things like that, because it's a real functioning restaurant, actually. So that was, which I've come to find out now being in the belly of the first dates machine. And so I was like, well, I haven't waited tables since I was 20. Um, what? And they're like, no, 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 we will teach you. It's not going to be that strenuous, but think about it and do it. And so I just said, well, sure, I would do it. And I went for a screen test and they loved me. And they said they loved me. And so I went in March and filmed episodes of First Dates, which is now airing on
Yep. So you'll all, if you haven't watched it, you'll all need to go now and go back through the last that series.
It is not one of the things I ever thought, if you were to ask me what I was going to be doing at age 57, that was not the thing I thought I would be doing at age 57. It just sort of, and it was this weird, I think I told you were one of the first people I told. I was like, yeah, so I'm going to be on this first dates as a server. And it was a great experience. I loved it. It was a lot of fun to do. But it's definitely like it was one of those things of I think to me because it did sort of happen at come at a time when I was saying yes to a lot of things
Yeah. Hmm.
that were sort of coming my way unexpectedly. So the first dates thing happened, and then I there's a men's skincare line that's out of France. And I know about it, and I bought it, and I'm religious about skincare because I'm afraid of having any wrinkles. And they opened up a store in Covent Garden in London. And I was there one weekend and I was buying stuff. And I joked with the manager. I said, if you're ever looking for a skincare model, I would love to do it. She said, okay. And she took down my information. And I was like, that's not gonna. A week later, she's like, so would you like to be in a commercial? And I was like, okay. So I now am doing skincare commercials for a French skincare company. Which my sister is I think it's the reactions of my friends that are the best. Because my sister is just like, what happened to you? And my business partner is like, when I told him first dates, so I'm gonna be on first dates, it's gonna be great. I said it's gonna be really good for our company, it's gonna be really good for the brand. And he's like, that's not why you're doing it. So but it was that sort of thing of saying yes to things and not being, and thinking about it, right? Because you don't want to say yes to everything,
Yeah.
but saying yes to things that I was like, you know what? I haven't had that experience. I'd be on that show. I haven't had that experience. I could be a skincare model. And so that's been sort of the 2025.
Yeah.
Well, since I moved here, but definitely this year has been a lot of me saying yes to things.
Yeah. And not
Just
something that was on. So this is the thing is, how people can sit there with their vision boards of all this sort of stuff that they want. You didn't have. I want to be a skincare model, and I want to be a
no,
waiter on first dates. It wasn't on your.
no. I was much more about right on be a first date. So it was like, how do I make this consulting business work? That was sort of the main priority, and then these other things
Yeah.
sort of popped up into the.
But we are making joy boards, right, next week with Thea,
Okay.
right, on Canva, right? We're doing a joy board. I'm sure then the first dates experience and the skincare would then be part of the joy. They
For the
would be the
joy.
joy boards, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They would be your joy board about what was what has brought you joy this year,
For the
and
joy.
what's, so um but yeah, I just loved it. And that thing, I was you're going, really? And then I remember watching you because I then went to go, I need to watch it. So when you were saying, oh, I'm on. And you have to go, I mean, if you haven't seen it, you have to go and watch it. But it's particularly the one where you happen to have a little bit of a mishap with
A
like,
little bit of
like
mishap. Yeah. The second episode, I literally well, it wasn't it was my second table I worked on. Maybe the first table I worked on. It was the first table I worked on. I spilled all the drinks on the people.
and of course that's going to make the show because that's
Well,
going to
I did it, and like any job, you're like, oh my God, I completely screwed up. I came downstairs, I was talking to the producer. I'm like, I am so sorry. If you want to let me go, I completely understand. That was so embarrassing. And they all just looked at me like, that was gold, Gerald. Like, that's the best thing that could have happened. I was like, oh, okay. And then watching it, it's like now having people watch it. And one of my best friends I've known for like 30, 40 years, she was just like, that look on your face is so you. That look I have seen so many times where you're like, but it was great. And it was a really joyful experience. I met some really great people.
yeah.
I became friends with a lot of servers. And I think it was that thing of when you do it and when you say yes it's the dividends that come from it,
Yeah.
right? And the things
Yeah.
that come from it. Any dates, I did actually wind up going on a date,
Yeah.
which they have somehow worked into the show. Um, I can spoiler alert, it did not go well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and even that was the experience where when it was done, I was like, what was that? What was that? But it was experience that let me know, okay, this is what I would like. I know what I want on a date next time I go on a date. So
Yeah. It's not what I had that
not
way.
that date. Not that date.
Oh dear, I love it. And that's I think that was one of the things when we were talking about November for me was all about joy, right? And bringing more joy. And I thought you and I need to have a conversation because we always have such a laugh when we're having a conversation. But I just wanted to share some of these stories because I think it would hopefully inspire others as well. Um and that thing about, yeah, just saying yes to something. I mean, it's like who else walks into a store to buy stuff, and the next thing they're the face of the face of Horace. It's just but it's been able to then lean into that and just go with it
Yeah.
because it is then joyful and it's that open. I think the thing is you approach things, I think, in a very open-hearted way.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
just kind of, it's like that's it as well. Just let's see what happens with this, and to the point, if it becomes more of a chore, and we've spoken about that around work things as well. That when you lean into something and it's great and you've said yes to something and it's new and it's all exciting and we're still figuring it all out, and then it might start sometimes, particularly with work, it can then start to feel like, oh, it's getting heavy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sticky, and it's like you just feel the difference in the energy of it and how it feels to you. And at that point then it's also then knowing when to walk away from something
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
look for something, and be brave enough to say no to to walk away from that and go to somewhere else.
It's funny because a lot of people have asked me, like, well, wow, now you want to be on TV and you want to do all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm okay. I said, if I do another season of First Dates, I'd be happy to do another season of First Dates. If I don't do another season of First Dates, I did it. And, as Ben always reminds me, he's like, it's forever. TV forever now. But I think it was that thing of, like I said, I didn't do it to like become a television star,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I'm not an actor in any way, shape, or form, which you can see when you see the show. The one time I did act, it is the most hilarious thing that you will ever see of me. Like it will be the thing that everyone who knows me will go, he's acting there. But it was that sort of I think coming into with the openness of being, I have no idea what's going to look like. But I remember the first day on the set, I wrote myself a little note that I would carry in my pocket with me, and it was, let go of the nervousness
Mhm.
and trust yourself.
Mm.
I have that note somewhere, but I put that in every day. Before we start, I would read that to myself and do it because I realized I'd gone in thinking, wow, this is like this experience is I could screw this up at any time. And the minute I sort of was like, you know what, just go be you. And I think that's the other piece of like you can do the experiences that are you, right? And things you would do. Some things that you wouldn't do, but for most things of even at least trusting yourself that you are going to do, the outcome's going to be good.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it was a horrible experience, and I was like, what did I learn from this? I learned I didn't want to be on TV anymore. That's fine. Right. I did it. I did it, and I'm like, this is great. I learned, I learned about the experience of television because I actually full circle to this. In university, I was a film major, and I worked in Hollywood for 2 years, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. It was the one of the worst experiences, only because it was so fake to me
Yeah.
and so different and so not me.
Yeah.
And so like the schmoozing you'd have to do. And the hilarious part was I then went into fundraising where all you do is schmooze people, as you do. But it was hilarious to come back almost full circle to be back to be back in television again.
Yeah.
at this age and to be like, oh, okay, somehow I'm in television again. That's interesting.
Hmm. And I wonder, so you're also you've also done your coaching qualifications,
Yes.
right? And so been exploring that route of helping people then to make decisions and helping them to kind of figure out where they're going next. So do you think that having had this experience, particularly this year, do you think that this helps you then to kind of like just, I suppose just to remember what it's like because you've been through that recently about stepping into new things and sometimes not knowing where you're going and trusting and just like I said, being yourself. I'm just a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. I mean, it's been interesting. A lot of the people who I've been coaching in the over the year or the past after I got the certification and a little before, I was doing more mentoring before that I got the
Yeah,
certification. Um, are about people who are like moving or like they're looking at a new job or they're moving or they're doing it. And so they've been like, wow, I'd love to talk to you about what that is and what comes up for you. So it's been really helpful. Like, right, one of the things that I give to people, it's like 6 questions that I got from a coach a long time ago
yeah,
when I was leaving my job, which was all about sort of how you screen for new opportunities. And as questions like, the salary, like the things we don't talk about, right? You want to go someplace where you have a good salary,
yeah.
right? Do you want to go someplace where you like the people you work with? Do you want to go someplace where there's to make sure there's diversity, equity, and inclusion is sort of baked into the organization and what they do and these things. And so it's been really great because the coaching I'm doing now is a lot around people sort of either seeking me out about, wow, you do a lot of transitions. I'd
Yeah,
like to talk to you about transitions because you see it seems to be I will say it's actually almost baked into my DNA, which is now that we are talking about this it's in my brain of how many times I've like moved and gone places and done things, and it will pick up and go next chapter
next.
in life.
Yep,
Let
yep.
me do this. Next thing in life, all right? I left school and I went off to grad school. I remember I was in San Francisco and I moved off to grad school and moved to Chicago, right? And then when I was done the grad school, I moved back to San Francisco, and so it was all these transitions, and so it's using all of that experience
Yeah.
to help people sort of somewhat navigate or just to talk about them. Because I think sometimes the thing that keeps us from doing that, transition is probably not the best word, but the thing that keeps us from change
Hmm.
is the fear of what's going right, is the outcome of it, right? Not as much the change, right? We all know everything changes, right? But it's because you don't know what the outcome of it's going to be that it keeps you from doing it
Hmm.
altogether. So I'm a believer if you have someone to talk about, right? And to talk about the fear
Yep.
and to talk about what you were hoping to have happen and what
Yep.
could happen and just to be able to play it out. So and to voice it, I think is really important. And so the coaching allows me to use that experience and then to help people do that.
Yep. And I think what struck me then when you were talking was so when we're in the past when I've been in employment and you would be moving and wanting to move jobs, and for me it was usually every 18 months. That was usually my limit for being in one job for any length of time. Um, and you would be looking at where the next thing was, what was it that really wanted to drive me forward. But I wonder now, we are obviously a Big Soul Network. We are supporting people who are in self-employment, they're running their own businesses. And how many of us have stopped to think about the transition or what the thing is that we're wanting to do in business and what it's going to give us in the same way that we would if we were applying for a job? And I don't know that many of us do. That way of going, so what do I want out of so if I'm applying to be
Yeah.
to run a business network, what do I want out of that? Do I, what sort of salary do I want out of it that's going to pay me? Am I hoping that I'm going to be having nice people to hang about with? Is that going to be really important to me about the people that I'm working with? What is it that's going to feel like I'm making a difference? Is that important to me? Am I going to be happy that maybe a lot of the work I'm doing is behind the scenes and it's like I'm just wondering how many of us would look at the opportunities that we move into in terms of like running a business in the same way as we would if we were thinking about applying for a job.
Job if you sort of planned it out, gave yourself the time to think about those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's making me think I'm lucky to have a business partner
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Someone to work with. And he and I actually, when we thought about doing this, I remember I would go down to London, we would situate ourselves in his house, and we would spend the weekend talking about what the business was going to look like
Yeah.
and what we wanted and what we were hoping to do and what we wanted to achieve and all of that. And we did that because it was a thing of like, and I think it was because I was so nerve-wracked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if we're gonna start a business, I think back to this fear of like, I need some certainty,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? I'm so used to having the certainty of a job, like
Yeah.
a 9 to 5 job, that it was suddenly to go and to be like, you have to be, and I think it's what it's actually taken me a bit to get used to, is you are the master of your own fate.
Yes. Yeah.
And you are the person that you are responsible for your time and you're responsible for what you do. And suddenly being that having that level of responsibility, but actually I was like, I need to think through this through about how much money do I want to make?
Yeah.
Um, what type of clients do we want to work with? Who do we want to, right? Who won't we work with? Where do we want to be? All of
Hmm.
those things. Because at one point it was like, maybe I should move to London because it would be easier because most of our clients are down in London. But I didn't want to move to London. So I'm like, okay, well, at least I know that I don't want to be in London. But that means the flip side of that is I have to travel down to London
Yeah.
at least once or twice a month
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do work. And so that, you factor those things in. But I think it'd be interesting if we went into self-employment thinking, what do I want to do? How much money do I want to make? What do I want this to look like? And when do I want to be done?
Yeah. Hmm. What's my end game?
What's
What's
my
the end?
end game in this,
Yeah.
right? What's
Yeah.
the end game? Because right? That's the part that we actually it's just, interestingly, I think we were both just looking at retirement age of being the end game. But I was also sort of like, I said, it was very funny with the place we differed at was I was like, well, consultancy is going to be so great that someone's going to want to buy it. And then they're going to take it was such an American concept that someone is going to buy this business and they're going to run with it and they're going to pay us a lot of money to take it off. And he's just looking at me like, really? I'm like, you never know. You don't know.
And it
But
could. But that's the thing, isn't it? If that is a destination that you want to build up a business that somebody's going to buy. And we talked about that when, Sinclair and I were kind of coming out indie authors, when I was just going, oh, I'm just done. I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. And we're going, all right. And we spoke to a couple of like agencies who sell businesses, and they were going, oh yeah, yep, we can value your business at, 90 odd thousand and we'll get, but the reality is, if you're so ingrained in your business, then they would have to buy us
mhm,
because
yes,
it was like, yeah, but so if you really want to think about that as a possibility, then you have to be working to the point where you're actually no longer really in your business.
that's right. That's right. And it's not about you, right?
And
Because
it's not about you. Yeah.
not about you, right? When you can pull yourself out. Because we asked because we update our website and we asked people for testimonials. And it was funny because one time we asked people, we were sort of like, is there a B&G?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah. And someone was explaining to us what they thought it was, which was really hilarious because we were then like, we can't, you would have to buy us, right? You would have to buy the way we interact with each other
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
business, the way we connect and how we work with clients, right? We rarely ever work separately when
Yeah.
we're working with different organizations. We always work together. And we tell people that's what you're getting is this interplay of the two of us
Yeah.
and how that works. And so to sell it, I'm like, wow, how would we transfer how we as
Yeah.
people are
Yeah. Yeah.
to that business and it still be that business?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, I think, and it's a challenge for
Yeah.
lots of us, particularly in this sort of, in any sort of world where you're creating stuff for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, Thea is I think, probably a serial entrepreneur in terms of product and things that she does. She's created lots of things. She loves music. She's done lots of books. She teaches people about Canva and all sorts of, wonderful things. And we were chatting the other day, around, this thing about having the consistency to do stuff. And I keep, oh, but going, but you could make more money when she said she doesn't have a spare £2,000. Well, when we were going to encourage you, Thea, to find ways to make more money in your business, so you've got a spare £2,000.
Yeah.
but the going, what do I have to give up to do that?
Yeah.
And that's also that's the decision making process of what's more important for you in terms of, is it the time and the freedom and the flexibility to just go, oh, I'm just following the things that I love to do and what would bring me joy,
Yes, right.
or I'm going to do this because this will give me more money. And that's almost like, well, I could go and have a job then.
I can go look it up and do it. I mean, it was interesting 'cause when I left the States, the job I had in the States was pretty high, right? I was making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, and I was spending it on myself.
Skincare.
Clothes, shoes. Um, and I remember when I left and I had to sit back and it was the first time I'd ever actually had this thought. I was like, how much is enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hadn't had ever had that thought. I thought because I came from the background I came from. We were poor. We needed so like many people, right? We were sort of when my grandmother worked for New York City Transit Authority. We were working class,
Yeah.
everything, and so I went off to university. It's the first one in my family to ever go to college, and so you were supposed to. I was supposed to make money. I was supposed
Yeah.
to do all these things. I was supposed to do it, and I was doing it, and I was like, I'm no happier.
Yeah.
Actually because of the job I had less of a life because all I did was travel for work. And I was everywhere and I was making a lot of money, but I was traveling all the time. I knew when a friend of mine, when I wasn't invited to a party in my own city from very good friends of mine, and I wound up going because another friend was like, well, let's go to this party. And I was really upset. I was like, I didn't get invited to this party. How dare they not invite me to this party? I'm going to go and give them a piece of my mind. You know, should you do that, right? Only Americans do that. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind for not being invited to this party. And I got there and they were like, we thought you moved. Like no one sees you anymore. That you just do it. You just are always traveling for work.
Yeah.
That no one sees you anymore. So we all thought you had moved away. And it's just like, which is what you do. So we thought you moved. And I realized, I think in that, and I was thinking about the trend of, leaving the job. And I was like, do I actually need as much money as I think I do?
Yeah.
Right? Do I actually, what's going to make me happy? Like, does this amount of stuff? And I it was very clear. I literally had 50 pairs of shoes. I had 20, 30 suits. I had a closet full of clothes. Clothes I hadn't even worn. I bought once and I never wore again. And I was cleaning out my closet when I was coming to move to Scotland. And a friend of mine was looking at my clothes like, what did you? I said, I was just buying things.
Yeah.
It was just, I should have been, I was saving money, but I was also just buying stuff. But I was also like, I don't need all this stuff. So when I came here, I knew I was taking a pretty substantial pay cut.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's fine because I wanted to do it. And you have to be willing to. And then once I sort of left even the super agency to do my own self-employment, I'm making about the same amount of money, but I'm actually happier because I'm my own boss,
Yeah.
right? I make my own time. And it's funny because someone just tried to convince me to take a job. I was telling you this, and someone just tried to convince me to take a job in Paris, not skincare. Um, take a job in Paris, and that always actually, I was like, yeah, move to
Maybe.
Paris, live in
Yeah.
Paris. Oh my God! And I thought to myself, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'd be happy because one, because I'd be working for people again, and I don't think I want to work for people. I didn't want to work for, I realized that was really it. I was like, I can't work for people again. I don't think I'm cut out for it anymore. Like, I think I like being my own boss. I like doing my own thing. I like making my own hours. I like deciding how much
Yeah.
money I need and what it is. Um, I also thought, and this is the first time, and I've never thought this before, and it's the first time I thought, I was like, I might be a little too old to pick up and move to Paris, right? Because you got right, the good part is I moved here at a time it's harder to make I think it's harder to make friends the older you get.
Yeah.
You can make friends, it's not saying you can't, but I think it's harder because I think we become very set of the people who we know and who we are, and you have to be outgoing and you have to do it. And I speak the worst French. I'm not a good French speaker, so I'm like, I'm gonna move to a country where I don't speak the language and I'm gonna have a job. And I would realize I was going backwards.
Yeah.
I said, I see where I'm going. I'm going back to working all the time and not doing anything and not having a life and suddenly being like, oh, I'm making a lot of money. This is great. And doing all these things. And I was like, I don't want to go backwards. right? All the things they're doing. I always feel like when the changes come and the transitions come, they're always moving forward to
Yeah.
new things
Yeah.
and new stuff.
And even just being aware of that, because if you had been in if it was, um, Jim Carrey's Yes Man in the year where he just said yes to everything, suddenly you go, oh, like the opportunities that this is my year of saying yes. Oh, I could go to Paris, and if you weren't aware of what actually brings you joy and makes you happier,
Yeah.
it could have been easy to say, oh yes, because here's the new experience, and I would love to live in Paris for a bit, and I would love, but then actually being able to stop and go, right, but what am I giving? What would be the downside? What would I be giving up?
Yeah. It
And
was
giving up the freedom as well of the.
of the thing. It's funny because the friend of mine who was telling me about the job, who was trying to recruit me for the job, almost weaponized my year of yes against me. And was like, but this is your year of yes. Just say yes. Just do it. Why not? They would love you. You would do it. I've already got you an interview. And I was like, but like I said, I was sitting back and going, but I know myself enough
Yeah, yeah.
to be able to be like, oh, okay, this might not be the best time to say yes. So it's back to that thing of like, you say yes to certain opportunities, you say yes to no, you don't say yes to other opportunities. It's just figuring out, which takes time and just sort of like a thought process and some thought about which ones yes, because you and I talked about it, and I talked about it with another friend of mine, and it was like they were like, wow, Paris, the dream to live in Paris. And then I was like, it doesn't sound like it would be dreamy.
Yeah,
It sounds like it would just be really
yeah. You'd be
tiring.
cramped in a tiny wee Parisian apartment, or not even be able to, as I said, probably not even be able to afford to live in Paris. You'd have to
In
stay
Paris,
outside.
I know. And it was hilarious because I went back. So they actually had me they flew me to Paris to film another commercial.
I know. I mean, just drop that in. Here we go.
It was just hilarious. I was like, when they called me and said, we'll bring you Paris. It was actually during the time I was trying to figure out the job. And so I was actually like, oh, I get to spend the day in Paris. Before we started filming, I had a whole day in Paris. I'm like, oh, this is great. I get a day in Paris to see, is this what I want to do? So it was almost like the universe was like, we're going to give you the opportunity to look to see if this is what you want to do. And so I went and I think I walked by a something like a kitchen store, like a Magnet or a Ren kitchen
Yep.
to see kitchens and bathrooms. And the kitchen that they had on display was so small. And I love cooking. So I was so small that I was like, that sink is tiny. And then people were like, oh, well, no one here. Gerald, we have so many cafes and so much food and so many options that, cooking at home. No, we don't do that. You would come here and you would live like us. And I was like, oh, I don't think that's not. I think if I'd been 20 years younger, I would have totally jumped in it. I would totally have been 10, even 10 years younger, I would say. I would totally have jumped at it and been like, let me go, move to Paris, do it, I'll make it work. And I have a friend in France who I could go see. He lives in the country of in Paris, in France. And I could go see him. But I was just like, it was just sort of no at that point of knowing myself. And I
Mhm.
don't regret it. I thought when I said no to the job that I would feel like, oh God, that was a bad experience. And I said no, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that thing of really, I suppose, knowing ourselves then, and being able to, and like you said, having friends and having other people that you can actually go, can I just talk this through with you?
Yeah,
And not the ones who are going to convince you to go either way, but will actually just hold a bit of space for you to go, okay, or maybe ask you the questions about, so what would
that's
it be
right.
like for you if you were going to go there? Or,
Would
just,
you do it?
yeah,
It's much more measured. I love like Thea said, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta go all in,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You too, Sue. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
See you soon, Sue.
Um, yeah, it is. And having friends, having people to be able to say, and it's the interesting part, right? Of I've had some friends. I've been very lucky to have friends. I've had friends for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Things. And it's interesting. I had a friend, just had a friend of mine in town recently, my friend from France, who I've known from America, who we've known each other. We've been friends for 30 years. And he's one of those people like honest conversation. And he said, if this had been like 10 years ago, Gerald, I'd have been like, move to Paris.
Yeah.
We come visit you and you come see Paris. And he said, but he's like, you have a house now. You're making a life for yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
here. And that's a thing. And I think, it's the interesting thing of the evolution of yourself
Yeah.
and the evolution of your friendships over time
Yeah.
and how they give you what you need because, right, you're evolving and you're changing and all
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
what comes out.
So yeah, and I'm just excited to see what comes next. I'm just kind of waiting to see, like, when are you, what producers are they eyeing you up for something like Traitors, or it's like
I could not do the Alan Carr thing. He's fantastic. On trainers, celebrity trainers. And I'm not a celebrity. It's funny. Someone said to me like, "Oh, you're a celebrity now." I'm like, uh, an E-list celebrity. I'm like so far down the totem pole
you have
that
been, but you have been recognized now.
I have been recognized. Yes, it's hilarious. It's very flattering. It's very funny as you get recognized, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Okay.
No, when I think somebody's staring at you, you're going, what have I done? What have I, but well, actually they're looking at you because they're going, have I recognized you from somewhere? Where is it?
Oh my God. I did go on a date recent, like just a couple months ago, and he was like, "You do skincare commercials." I saw you on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh, I can't live this down." Now that's the opposite side of it, right? I'm like, "Oh, you're out there now. People see you. You're there." So that's a bit. That's a bit interesting. I'm not sure how prepared I am for that, but
You see, this is what you need now, is a little bit of promotional material that you've just got your picture and you'll just kind of say, would you like it? Would you like me to sign one for you? See, I could print you stuff, like. So, thanks, Thea. We'll,
thanks,
we'll
Thea.
catch you soon. So yeah, it's been a joy to
Yes, thank
chat
you.
with you tonight and just kind of wander through stuff. Ginger, have you got anything you want to ask or say before we kind of round up? You recognize some of the experiences of coming from a different country and coming to kind of stay
Yes,
here.
yes, moving always new places. But do you have some personal motto that help you to be always cheerful?
Oh, that's a good question. I think in my mind, I don't know if it's a motto as much as it's more or less like, you know what? I'm gonna use something that someone said to me, and he said it to me a while ago, and I was younger, and I was like, that's stupid. But now I say it's like choose joy.
Wow, it's so
That's
like him.
yeah. I
Yeah.
say like Kim, I think that's why we get along. It's like choose joy. It's like, right. I find it that most of the times I'm like, you could be mad, and I don't see the point. It takes more energy to be mad. I'm much more into being like, oh, I'm gonna see the best in somebody, or I'm gonna do this experience, or I'm gonna try these things out. So it's much more about choosing joy and choosing to sort of live,
Mhm.
right, the best you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
That's what we're encouraging. We're encouraging for you as well, then, Ginger. That's it. That's a
Yeah.
brilliant way to end this night with a choose joy,
Choose
when
joy.
that's exactly what we're talking about for November.
That's right. Choose joy. Choose joy. But thank you for having me. This is great. I loved it. It was great. I loved
See, we're
it.
just going to entice you back to come and join in some other things.
Well, I have to now. Yeah, I'm like thinking,
No.
I'm like, oh, this is the way it is. Okay, I'd totally be into this.
You
This
can
is
come in
great.
and yeah, you can come and
Love it.
join in with some of these things. That's great.
Love it.
So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your joy, your wisdom, your stories with us. It's been absolutely wonderful, and
You're
I
welcome.
love spending time with you as always. So,
Same here. Thank you, my love. It's been fantastic. I love it. I love it.
oh, perfect. So good.
All right.